to infinity and beyond.
This is me. This is how I win.
Were you rushing or were you dragging? Answer!
You're a wizard, Harry.
Say what again? Say what again? I dare you.
No, I am your father.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
And here we go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back inside the film room. I'm Zach Goins, editor-in-chief, and I am joined by the one and only Johnny Sobchak, our senior writer. Johnny, how are you today?
I am doing well, Zach. I am tired, but I am
Tell the people why
well.
you're tired. It's okay.
My girlfriend and I had a fun date night last night, which involved going to see In the Heights at the theater, which was fun. But then we capped it off by finishing what we started yesterday afternoon, which was in fact Mayor of Easttown on HBO Max. And so we were up till we got to bed around 5 o'clock after finishing the show. So it's we were hooked, to say the least, and hell bent on finishing it because of course I visit on the weekends, so we didn't want me to leave without finishing it because no one
without
wants to,
figuring out who the killer is.
Exactly. So
But that just goes to show the power of a Zach recommendation on the podcast. I mentioned it last week, and then you stay up until 5 a.m. But the power is not too strong since you're still not in the Ted Lasso hive. We have to get that corrected.
I'm closing in. It's got to be soon because I know season 2 is right around the corner.
Yeah, you're running out of time. But today, as you may have guessed, listeners, that by Johnny saying that he went to go see In the Heights. That is the review today. We've got a little bit of news to talk through. We're going to be talking through the first episode of Loki on Disney Plus, and Johnny will be reviewing In the Heights. I'll be asking him some questions about it. But before we get into the meat of the episode, what's going on? First off, as always, we got to shout out the Week of Lasso. Just wrapped it up, finished an incredible week of 7 interviews on YouTube and across our social media platforms with the cast of Ted Lasso. If you haven't checked it out, please do. It was a blast to put together. It's had a great reception so far from Ted fans and just fans of the individual actors. So if you haven't, go check it out. It was a blast. You'll enjoy it. And then we'll get Johnny up to speed so we can do more for season 2. But other than that, Johnny, what's been going on with you?
Nothing too much. Keeping busy. Didn't really explore a lot outside of this weekend.
You had your hands full with Mayor of Easttown.
I sure did. I did watch one movie during the week. For the first time, I saw The Outlaw, Josie Wales, Clint Eastwood's film that he directed and starred in the 70s. And I've been on a little bit of a Clint Eastwood kick as of late because my older brother, he isn't like super familiar with like westerns, like older, like kind of classic westerns with Eastwood. So I showed him Unforgiven, which is another film Eastwood directed. I think that might have been the first one we watched, which is kind of funny because that's like a revisionist western where Clint Eastwood is like old and like way past his prime. And that was the first one we watched, and then we've gone back and watched The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, as well as Josie Wales now, and it was very good. I liked it a lot. I liked it even more than I expected to, and I am generally a pretty big fan of these kinds of movies. And it's funny because I also noticed I'm not sure if James Mangold has expressly said that this film was an influence for Logan. I know that Shane, the Western Shane, was a big influence for Logan. Of course, that movie is actually in the movie itself. They watch part of it. But there are definitely some parallels and I think some inspiration from this movie that show up in Logan. So that was kind of a fun little pop cinema connection to lean into. But then this weekend, of course, started Mayor of Easttown yesterday afternoon with my girlfriend.
Started and finished it.
It started and finished it. And over the last couple of months, I mean, it wrapped up about a couple weeks ago now, I think. And I like to stay in the loop and stay on trend. But I was so busy over the last couple of months, and so is my girlfriend, and we live in different cities. So I wanted to wait until we could watch it all to get like into its entirety together, because we and it was a struggle because I had to watch every week as people were tweeting about it and hyping it up. And it was really a show that when it premiered, I didn't have any real expectations for. It was okay. It's another like, and I don't know why, because HBO is literally all hits, no misses. That's just for the married folks. But like, I don't understand how they continue to pump out these amazing, whether it be a mini series or full, series or original films. Like, they're straight W's, and this was no different. So I was really glad to finally get around to it, and I somehow amazingly finally got to watch it and never had it spoiled. Like, I never had
Neither did I. Yeah,
any
that
major
was
plot points spoiled. And I was someone who, I'm on Twitter a lot, and a lot of people had been watching it. So that was a very pleasant surprise, and I was thoroughly shocked at every turn. So that was awesome. And then In the Heights last night in theaters as well, which I will speak on a little bit more later in the episode. But Zach, what have you been digging into on your end of things?
well, of course, the road to F9 has continued for me. I've been living my life a quarter mile at a time, and this quarter mile included Fast and Furious 6, which, oh my God, Johnny, this was the best one yet. This was absolutely insane, incredible movie. Like, I legitimately gave this 4.5 stars of just pure awesomeness, because oh my God. I mentioned last week talking about Fast 5 that it was like the crew was finally together, like all as we know them today. And so this was the second iteration where that was still the case. And so everybody was a little bit better. There's more chemistry. Everybody was better working together. But the insanity is just like off the charts here. There were legitimately 4 different moments where my jaw like dropped and I like gasped, because it was just like so crazy and fun and unbelievable. Like, oh my, I after everybody had told me like Fast 5 was the best one, and then this one just like went off the charts, next level, and surpassed that one. And then Jake has told me that Furious 7 is actually his favorite. So like,
okay,
this is apparently, someone tweeted at me that I'm in the middle of a golden trio here with 5, 6, and 7. But my next stop will be throwing it back to Tokyo Drift, which was the third one, because I'm watching them in like story chronology versus release date. So that'll be interesting to go from 2013 back to like 2003 maybe, and see how it still holds up. But other than that, F9 going to Cannes, what an incredible feat. Like, you can't hate on the franchise now that they're going to go and be at one of the most prestigious festivals. Is what was the term, a planetary blockbuster?
Yeah. Oh, I certainly can hate on it, and I can certainly hate on Barry Framo for teasing everyone in such a way where they completely were going the opposite direction with this, their predictions. And I guess part of it was that people hadn't considered that a lot of times these premieres happen and the films they're it's designed so the movies come out, during the festival, and in theaters for wider audiences to watch, or shortly thereafter. And I mean, F9 has been out for like weeks in China, I think, and will be out here, shortly in the United States in a couple weeks. Um, and then I guess it doesn't come out until sometime in July over in France. So that makes sense, but no, it kind of snuck under the radar, and was an unpleasant surprise, I think, for some people to
Well, I'm thrilled.
realize. Well, I guess you'll just have to go to Cannes to
Is it Con or Can? I thought it was Con. I don't know.
I
I'm
believe
the
it's
notorious
Cannes.
for terrible pronunciations on this podcast, so I'm giving up at this point.
Cannes, baby.
But beyond the road to F9, I had two upcoming releases that I checked out. We'll talk about both next week, but one was Luca, obviously Pixar, Disney, coming to Disney Plus next Friday, and that'll be our full review next week. So I don't want to give too much away, but that was a lot of fun. And The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard, not as much fun. Truly one of the most insane movies that I have seen, and not the same insanity that Fast and the Furious is like a ton of fun. This was just like, how is this even a movie? But because it comes out this coming Wednesday. I don't want to, and what I want to talk about it is like just the absurdity of part of the plot. So I don't want to say all this while nobody can actually like relate to it because they haven't seen it yet. So we will save that discussion for next week, but it's an absolute shit show. And I am very excited to talk about it. You and Jake and Josh and Connor got a sneak peek in the group chat of just some of the ridiculousness of it. But I will say that was my first in-person screening back at the theater, for like an advanced screening since, I don't know, probably like February of 2020. So that's the only reason I went. I did not go expecting a quality film. I just wanted to be back in that environment. So it was worth it for that. But
you got what you wanted.
But if you're dying to just hear my feedback on that movie, there's a review already up on the site, so you can check it out there and get warmed up for next week's pod. But that's been me, other than all those movies and then keeping up with my regular shows. Bad Batch. I think I'm ready to retire from High School Musical, the series. It's become far too cringy for me.
Wow, that's really. Are you sure?
Like the first season was like cringy, but like in a cute, fun way. And then now it's just kind of like, I don't know. I might give it one more week, but this past week I was like watching it and my Disney Plus started buffering and it like the app closed out and I was like, well, guess that's the end of that. And I wasn't like, man, I have to keep watching. But I did ultimately end up finishing the episode, but we'll see.
I believe. Well, I guess I take that back. I don't believe that it'll coax you back into the fold, but maybe it'll surprise you.
Well, you know what is on Disney Plus, and we are both in the fold for, Johnny, is Loki.
It sure is, yeah.
The third of the Marvel series on Disney Plus, switching it over to Wednesday releases now, but episode 1, Glorious Purpose. You and I have both seen the first 2 episodes, not to like flex on anybody, but we will just be discussing episode 1, of course, here, which currently has a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, 25 reviews, so not a ton, but little synopsis. After stealing the Tesseract in Avengers Endgame, Loki lands before the Time Variance Authority. So quick breakdown. What are your thoughts on this? I know you've been mixed to negative on the first 2 shows, WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier. What do we think here?
Yeah, this is by far the best I think that they have had to offer in the television format from Marvel. I might be in the minority. I know there's been some criticism about those first two shows, But I think I was harsher on them than most people, and I still think there's good reason for that. I mean, um, WandaVision, I think, was a little bit too caught up in the whole mystery box aspect of it and never really paid off in a satisfying way, despite, some interesting creative decisions and good acting and all that. And then you have Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which was almost like not enough like interesting creative decisions or like boldness. I'd probably put WandaVision slightly over Falcon and the Winter Soldier just because they were more bold, and daring in some of the directions they went. Whereas Falcon and Winter Soldier was just, I mean, it could have been a movie, really. I mean, it could have been a solid, 2 hour, 20-minute, Sam Wilson story. And I think you really could have done some interesting things with that instead of just drug out to 6 hours, and kind of awkwardly balanced between Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes. Whereas Loki, hits the ground running, right? And it's very much, 1 second, after, what we see in Endgame, where Loki grabs the Tesseract and disappears into the void. And it's so funny because now we're over 2 years removed from that film, and I just remember everyone seeing that in theaters and gasping because you're like, oh shit, he just, there goes the Infinity Stone. Like, what are we gonna do now? And you're also, but you're also really thinking at the same time, well, what the hell is gonna happen with that? Like, Loki just left with the Tesseract. Like, what could possibly happen? And of course, we never know because they go back to a different timeline, but it's really this is just a really fun, inventive, and I think so far more like almost like philosophically and emotionally challenging compared to, certainly compared to, I think, both WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier, because while those kind of touched on certain ideas, and themes, especially like
Johnny, what
Falcon
is grief if not love persevering?
yes, exactly. And then Falcon and Winter Soldier with, the kind of the look at the United States, the history of racism and the government, involvement in that, and the military, which was, again, I think the most interesting and thought-provoking aspects of those shows. But this, I think, in a like fundamental level, is kind of challenging some things. They're like looking at a very interesting and dynamic, and challenging character like Loki, who has been, his development throughout the films has been very interesting to watch. And I think it's kind of like breaking all that down, and so far doing it with, we've seen 2 episodes, so I'm not going to comment too much on the second one, obviously. But in this first one, at least, really doing it with a lot of flair. It's visually, arresting. Like, I think the sets in this are some of the most interesting that I've seen in the MCU. Even just the light fixtures and I don't even know how to describe what the interiors of the TVA, the Time Variance Authority, like, it's almost like a 60s,
Government building.
Yeah, like it's really interesting. Kind of reminds me of the Nice Guys, almost a little bit.
Yeah.
Just the way it's
Lots
all
of
designed.
orange.
The orange, yeah, especially. And then of course you have the Disney World-esque, you have Miss Minutes, I think is her name, which is like the kind of mascot, with a fun voice that gives you a little bit of a background, almost like you're in Tomorrowland at Disney or Epcot. It's a really interesting like mishmash, including the Hanna-Barbera style like cartoon that it gives you the narration, and it's just, I don't know, it's really something that I wasn't expecting. I think I'm not even really sure what I was expecting, but I am pleasantly surprised by just how deep they're going with this. And a big part of that as well, and I'm sure you're going to have some things to say about this, but Owen Wilson as Mobius.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Wow.
What a like I mean, just a I don't even know how to describe it, like a breath of fresh air in a way. Because I think Owen Wilson, he he is a I mean, he's a great actor. I mean, he's been around forever. And I don't think he's ever really been in anything this big, um, or popular, but
Hey,
it
don't hate on the Night at the Museum movies.
a Night Museum classic, no doubt. But I think what he brings to this show, um, it's a like it feels like a very down, almost like down to earth kind of personality while still being funny and witty and almost, I mean, he's almost kind of, and we'll probably get into it more, but like godlike. Like he has very like godlike abilities in how he can very easily, he can control Loki, and Loki is a god himself, of course. Even though in
Right.
the TVA his powers and abilities are kind of stripped from him. But yeah, the dynamic between them I think is the highlight on top of everything else that I've kind of been praising so far. Um, and
Definitely.
that
Like even beyond like anything that happens in the show, just them together is entertaining enough on its own.
exactly.
And I like what you said about his character Owen Wilson being like down to earth versus like you in most cases like someone with these incredible powers, like you said, would be a huge like eccentric character or something.
Yes.
But
Yeah. So
they
like
all
he's
very
the
much fill the like government employee kind of like, I'm just here doing my job, like whether it's Owen Wilson's character or
Mhm.
the person who takes the Tesseract. I can't remember his name, but he was in The Good Place as
Oh,
well. He played Pillboy. But
yes.
like they're just very like they're doing these incredible things, but it's just like all very mundane to them.
Yeah, and I think to your point as well, like I'm thinking of Jeff Goldblum as like the character in Thor Ragnarok, um,
Hmm.
who is just so eccentric and like over the top, and like there are even lines in this that remind me of Thor Ragnarok or Guardians of the Galaxy, like where they talk about the function of time in the TVA and like how it passes differently. That's like straight out of Thor Ragnarok. And I think that this Loki show so far fits very much in that kind of Ragnarok, Guardians of the Galaxy, um, galactic, cosmic realm of the MCU. It has that kind
Definitely.
of that humor to it. It also has, I think, the craft in a lot of ways, the sets, the kind of the designs and whatnot. Um, but really, I think if this stays on track the way it is, and it could go horribly off the rails. I mean, who knows? I was quite high on the. I mean, I really liked the first episode of Falcon the Winter Soldier. To be quite honest, I think that it was still probably ended up being my overall favorite. Um, and then I was into the beginning of WandaVision, and curious to see where that was going to go. I really hope that this thing is just a smash hit like all the way to the end, because I am dying for like a full on like MCU show that I think takes all the risks and delivers and is satisfying. Um,
Hmm.
and I think that this is off to a really good start.
Yeah, it's a lot. That's a good way to describe this. I think like I watched the first episode twice, just because there's like so much. We've been told that this is going to be have the biggest impact out of anything like on the MCU moving forward. Um, that there's a lot here. Obviously, you're getting into different timelines in the multiverse, and we know what's on the
Mm,
horizon with Spider-Man 3 and with Multiverse of Madness, and just like how everything is, where we're headed with the MCU. But I feel like we almost need like a glossary, because we've got like variants, nexus events, the different points on the timeline, and the like. That's why mainly why I had to watch it twice, because I was just trying to make sure I had everything straight as far as like their different lingo. But one thing
mm,
that I thought was super interesting, there was an interview with Michael Waldron, who's the showrunner, um, and he was talking about the basically we got like a brief version of time travel in the MCU in Endgame, obviously with going back to get all the Infinity Stones and whatnot. And this seems to be a different version of time. Like people have made the point, like, how come the Avengers did everything and the TVA didn't show up or whatever. And Waldron said, Endgame's explanation of time travel is the way the Avengers understand it, meaning that it's all like from their perspective. It's up for interpretation. It does, just because they see it that way doesn't mean that is the actual way. So that's interesting, opening the door for obviously what seems to be a more authoritative perspective, or a more authoritative concrete version of the rules of time travel with the TVA. Because Tilda Swinton, the Ancient One in Endgame, when she's talking to Hulk on the rooftop, she says that removing an Infinity Stone from its timeline will lead to chaos. But literally, we see a drawer full of Infinity Stones that have been removed from different timelines, and those timelines are like have continued forward. So just like one slight hint that even what you thought you knew about Marvel and the MCU and time travel and timelines and all that is not necessarily the case. And that's something that's super exciting about this show and what it could potentially open up the door for.
Well, and that's another interesting point as well, that this is going to have a big impact. I mean, you can tell that already because of the way they talk about multiverse and timelines and nexus events, and that all is very sounds in the vein of Spider-Man No Way Home and Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Like, I think that this is going to make those movies a little less confusing or shocking by having this context and prelude that dives into all those possibilities. And lastly, at least for me, I think this show, with regards to time travel as we understand it, or as the Avengers understand it, yeah, it's gonna be super interesting in the respect that I have no idea how this could end. You know what I mean? With WandaVision and Bucky and the Winter Soldier, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, those shows had big characters, popular characters that are still very much in play and alive and kicking in the the primary timeline / world of the Avengers post Endgame. Vision, of course, being the exception, of course, but I think we all expected him to stay dead, quote unquote. I didn't think he was going to come back, really. But at least in this, we have one main character in Loki, and this guy, they say, he asks Mobius, I can't go back to my timeline, can I? And Mobius just kind of looks at him, like he has a shot of him, but he doesn't really give an explicit answer. And I'm curious to see if at the end of this season, is this Loki, is he going to stay with the TVA? Is he going to continue to work with them? And is the show going to end on the note of them maintaining a partnership and working together to save the multiverses? Or is it going to end with him dying? Is it going to end, or what?
Well, this is the one out of the three that we've got so far. This is the one that is not a mini series or limited series. They haven't specified.
Exactly.
They have said that this could be multiple, like Loki out of the three could be the one that has multiple seasons. So
exactly, yeah, that's another point.
We've only got 6 episodes here, but just because of that, it doesn't mean that episode 6 is going to end this story.
Exactly. So in that respect, I think that they could, if they really, if this is a hit and they really want to milk it, then you really think, yeah, Loki's going to have to be around in some capacity. But because there are so many variants, you could have another Tom Hiddleston Loki in a way. I just don't know, like, how many episodes of this can you do, really, or like how many seasons? Like, can we watch 15-20 episodes of Loki doing all this time variant stuff, or is it going to be, after a while, it's going to be like, okay, it's a bit too much, like, or confusing, or like over the top? Like, I think at some point you're going to undermine the emotional weight of it, because I think that they have established a good amount of emotional weight and impact for Loki to change and look at his life and be like, okay, I want to do this differently. But I think in a respect, you have to end with, you know, that acceptance or like moving on in some way or some sort of closure for the character.
Right.
And I guess what my thinking was before we finish up is that, yeah, okay, so they might do another season or something, but I think it would be really interesting, and especially because they kind of have left the door open um, for the unclear, you know, aspect of can he go back to his timeline or not, would be, you know, he goes on this mission to save the sacred timeline and to do the right thing and to be a good person, and then maybe at the end of it, almost like Captain America, like he chooses to go back to his timeline and to basically like act it all out, knowing what it leads to, like knowing that he can't change things, that he has to go through with it anyway. Like I think that would be an interesting note to leave it on. Like it's kind of like the most, I guess, selfless thing Loki could do after being so selfish, like in all the other films, to just kind of go through the motions, but like doing the right thing and like leading to the Avengers saving every, you know, the universe really. I think that would be an interesting way to take it. But the last thing I'll ask you actually before we wrap up on this is, you know, we've seen 2 episodes, but we still have a ways to go, and there's a potential for a season 2. Do you think, first off, I guess the sacred timeline bit and the timekeepers being the godlike overwatchers of the sacred timeline and all these different converging timelines or diverging timelines, do you think that they first off are good? Do you think that they're doing the right thing? Do you think the show is going to maintain them as the status quo and that there's not going to be any controversy around those characters, that they're not going to be, you know, kind of thrown down and then it's going to lead into kind of madness from there? Or do you think that the sacred timeline is going to be, it's truly going to be kept as much as it can, and that is the only way to go? Or do you think that that's kind of like a moral quandary that they're kind of raising, and that, well, is that really the right way to go? Is that really what we want? Or should we give more freedom? Should we eliminate the timekeeper? Should we, you know, kind of get them out of here and you know, have that ability?
That is a very good question that I had not considered. I mean, I feel like obviously they would not have introduced them if there wasn't going to be more on them. I think we'll get to see them in some, like in the flesh rather than just in a cartoon in some aspect.
Yeah. Okay.
But I don't know. I feel like Loki would obviously he would be arguing for multiple timelines versus just the one sacred one, considering he's dead in the sacred timeline. So, or he couldn't go back to it. So I feel like that could be an interesting like argument that he picks up and campaigns for.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense from Loki's like more selfish, I guess, standpoint and motivation.
Well, any final thoughts on Loki episode 1 before we move on to our news?
It's great. I mean, it's a really great start, and I am just I'm anxious to see where it goes, and I really hope that it stays on this like level of quality, because I would be super pleased if it does. And I just have really nothing but good things to say about it so far, and I you know, I can kind of understand the criticisms. Maybe the first episode was a little too exposition heavy, or it was a little bit boring because it's just sitting around and there's not a bunch of action. This to me was the best, most interesting episode out of all the, you know, between WandaVision and Falcon Winter Soldier and this. I think it's the best one. And I think a big part of that is Loki and Mobius and their dynamic, and the Owen Wilson's performance and Tom Hiddleston's, and just all the designs and the writing. And I think it's just kind of the perfect storm. And I think that I think that it'll all pan out. But I guess we'll see. We have a few weeks of this, and it's going to be a fun summer show to keep up with.
I'm with you on that. We will be breaking down episode 2 next week, so be sure to check it out. It's going to be interesting that with it releasing on Wednesdays now, that there'll be plenty of time to digest it and brush up on different fan theories and breakdowns before we give ours. So maybe we'll have a little bit more insight to share. But let's get into some news. Not too much going on. A couple trailers, both starring Andrew Garfield. We've got Tick Tick Boom, which is a Netflix musical, the directorial debut of Lin-Manuel Miranda on the big screen, or I guess the dependent screen, wherever you're watching your Netflix. But it will be hitting theaters, so I guess we can go with big screen. But did you watch this trailer? What do you think here? If
I did.
so,
I did take a look at it. I think it looks good. It really didn't like have a huge impact on me. It didn't really like stand out a ton. It certainly has that musical, stage, musical theater feel to it.
and this is completely original, right? This is all new.
No,
it is not, or is it? No, just sorry. That's
it is actually based
it's
on
an adaptation.
Yes, it is by the same guy who made Rent.
Okay. So it is new in the sense that it is not a Lin-Manuel Miranda original, but it is not new because it is.
Yes, it's Jonathan Larson. And it's funny because I think this was the we just had In the Heights come out, and that was very much like a prelude to In the Heights. Of course, it was kind of like a prelude to Hamilton, of course, for Lin-Manuel Miranda, whereas Rent was a big smash hit that everyone kind of knows in some regard, and that was a prelude to this for Jonathan Larson, Tick Tick Boom, which is a smaller, less well-known but still notable musical. And this looks good. I mean, I know there's just so many musicals this year. It's fucking bizarre, but it looks good. I don't think it looks necessarily like something I'd be as interested in as I was in the Heights, or even potentially Spielberg's take on West Side Story. But I think it'll certainly be worth a look. I like Andrew Garfield a lot. Little unsure about first time directors can always be hit or miss. We've had a lot of hits in recent years, which is promising. But we'll see what Lin-Manuel kind of brings to the table with this. It could be something special. I don't know a ton about the original musical or how well that's regarded. I'm sure it's regarded well, but yeah, it's kind of nice going into something and not knowing a lot about it. And this trailer doesn't give a ton away, and I'm gonna kind of keep it that way, at least on my end of things, not dig too much.
Right. I will say the biggest surprise here for me was that I thought this was a completely different movie. I thought I knew like, oh, another Lin-Manuel Miranda musical is coming out later this year. I thought this trailer was for Vivo, the Sony Pictures animation one where Lin-Manuel Miranda is like voicing the like singing rodent. And I was like, wait a minute, this is not what I thought it was. But I'm with you. It looks good. It is weird that there are so many musicals this year because that other one is also coming out this year. But I don't know. We'll see. But on the flip side of the Andrew Garfield spectrum, we've got The Eyes of Tammy Faye with Jessica Chastain and Andrew Garfield, based on the true story of the televangelists gone wrong, that are exploiting people for their money. And did you watch this trailer? It's got some criticism for just being like absolutely insane on social media.
I have seen it. I did see it. Yeah, I don't really know what to think of this. It looks super like camp. Like it looks I know the director he did The Big Sick. He did Lovebirds, the Netflix film. That I have not seen. I did like The Big Sick. This looks I don't know what to think. It doesn't look like something I'd be terribly interested in. Like, I don't necessarily think I'm gonna watch this movie when it comes out, unless I'm like forcibly like positioned to do so. Um, I like Andrew Garfield, like Jessica Chastain. I think there's been a lot of talk about the transformative aspects of the performances or the roles. Andrew Garfield looks largely the same.
He looks like
Where
Andrew Garfield with gray hair. Like,
Yeah, and like a receding hairline. Whereas Jessica Chastain looks okay. People have been praising this makeup. Some people have been like, "Wow, she's unrecognizable. She looks so like the makeup looks phenomenal." Best actress, not nominee, hair and makeup nominee, which very well could happen. I'm not going to rule out either of those things. I think like she looks like she just walked out of like the Nutty Professor. Like, to be honest, like I think
but
some
apparently
of it.
that is what this person looked like in real life. Like, I was reading some of the comments on the YouTube, like on YouTube under the trailer, and they were saying like it actually was not enough. They were like, she needs to have thicker eyeliner, like thicker eyelashes. Like, in real life, it looked like she
But
had
I've looked
caterpillars
her
on
up.
her
Like,
eyes.
I have looked at Tammy Faye, and she does like I can see, I can see the comparison. I can see the likeness, but I think it's a very hard look to recreate on another human being that does not look like that. Like, I think the quality of like the skin and the actual, and this is, we're going like very technical and deep into this makeup, of course.
We need
But
to get
like,
Donald Moet in here
we
for
need to
some
get his opinion.
consultation.
Yes, we need to get Donald's thoughts. But like, and I'm not like, the artists are going to do what they're told to do and like make it look how they are told to make it look, and I'm not blaming them. Like, it's still very impressive to make someone look that different, because Jessica Chastain, of course, looks nothing like that. um I just don't think it really works for me. Maybe it works more in the context of the film, and I think that they are going like an over top campy sort of vibe with it. um but to me, it didn't stand out as like, wow, look at that. It was more like, okay, look at that. I don't know. Were your feelings different on that, Zach? You more interested? Did you know much about this, or what?
I didn't know what it was about before watching the trailer. I will say I am interested in this. I thought that just like, I don't know, I think that's obviously like maybe not to this extreme, but it's still like a very prevalent like topic. You see it on social media with like Joel Osteen or like the mega church preachers who like drive
Hmm.
Lamborghinis and all that. Like, all it's still like a very prevalent criticism. And so this sounds like super fascinating to me. I, like you said, I like Andrew Garfield and Jessica Chastain both, so I'm interested to, I'll definitely check it out once it comes out. I don't know, I feel like just based on what I'm reading, it's like very much Jessica Chastain is going for an Oscar nomination. Who knows if she'll get it? We'll have to like wait and see. Obviously,
Yeah,
if if it lives up to the hype, but she is
I
going
guess
for it and putting everything into that.
exactly. Yeah, and I guess I better go on record, Zach, while we're here talking about that. I don't think she'll get in, if we're talking specifically about the Oscars. And I don't even think, I really don't think the hair and makeup will even get in, actually. But I can't rule it out. I would say, if anything, the hair and makeup, because it is so out there and obvious and like kind of transformative, I think that honestly would have a better chance than Jessica Chastain. But because it is a crowded field, it's going to be getting crowded and crowdier as the year goes on. But certainly something to keep an eye on.
Definitely. Well, one more trailer to keep an eye on, more of a teaser. Johnny, I don't believe you're a viewer of this, so I will just take the reins here. But Outer Banks season 2, we got a quick little, maybe like 30 to 45-second teaser. Most importantly, revealing the premiere date of July 30th. Season 2 will hit Netflix then. And the perfect summary of this show, like, this came during, obviously the first season came last year during the pandemic. We were all at home, and it was the like fun, super dumb teen drama, but like adventurous and just like ridiculous, sort of like Fast and the Furious, but like for teenagers. But and just like the fact that it's like fun and adventurous and just ridiculous plot. But the perfect synopsis of that was when John B says we're back in the G game. That's like, I was talking about High School Musical being cringy. That's like the similar level of like, why can't you just say like we're still hunting treasure or something like that? But like you had to like put some like hip trend on, like twist on it that isn't actually a thing. But nonetheless, love the show. We'll be watching it, probably binging it that weekend. So I'm very excited for it. But there's another show, or I guess another film that is coming soon that I assume you are way more excited about than me, Johnny.
Yes. So we got a little bit of Lord of the Rings news, crazily enough. In film news, I should be clear, because we all know the Amazon show is on the horizon. But this is going to be a feature film in the anime medium, which I think took everyone by surprise. And it is going to be titled The War of the Rohirrim, which is in development from New Line Cinema and Warner Brothers, so same companies that brought us the original trilogy. And it will take place in the same timeline, of course, as the Peter Jackson films, which is just the Middle Earth, universe. I believe this is going to be during the Second Age, which is about 250 years, 300 years before the events of the trilogy, with Frodo and Sauron and the Great War. But this is going to be focused on, and this was what I thought was really interesting about it, because you have, of course, it is a prequel, so naturally you're going to have things that are set before that and kind of tie in. But this is focused on the king of the Rohan, Helm Hammerhand, and a legendary battle which helped shape Middle Earth. And that story, I guess, is going to expand the origins and the story behind the Fortress of Helm's Deep, which is of course very famous in the original trilogy. It's where the great battle, the Battle of Helm's Deep, happens at the kind of the second half of the Two Towers film. And we'll delve into the life of Hammerhand, which is sure to be a bloody one, if he's the king of the Rohan and involved in some legendary battle. I love Lord of the Rings. More Lord of the Rings content will always be welcome. But definitely wasn't expecting an anime like feature film to be like. I mean, they're going for it. Sounds like it'll be a theatrical
I'm curious.
release.
Yeah, I'm curious. Like, I know they said anime. Like, are they using that term loosely, or will it be like manga style, like anime? Like, because they've had like the Hobbit movies. Those were like, they had previously animated versions of those, and it was not anime. It was just animated. So I'm curious what the look and
this
feel
is going
of
to
this
be
will be.
legitimately, like, it's going to be anime. Like, it's going to be directed by Kenji Kamiyama, who is a famous anime filmmaker. He's had some involvement with Warner Brothers before. He's done anime projects. He's working on a Blade Runner anime project, I believe. And he's also done some Ghost in the Shell stuff. Not the original film, but a TV series called Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex. So he's got the pedigree. I think that's really cool. They're doing something, different. They're taking it a different direction. Yeah, and the Blade Runner Black Lotus show, which is directed by him, is in the pipeline. Might come out later this year. Between Crunchyroll and Adult Swim, we'll see what happens with that. But if hopefully that's good, and that gives us more reason to get excited for this. But I'm down. I mean, anything Lord of the Rings. I think it's just an unexpected direction to take it, but I'm certainly all for it. I think it could be a cool little exploration in a medium for Lord of the Rings that hasn't been explored yet.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you're happy about it. We'll see. We'll see. I do want to revisit those movies, but I will have to carve out like a 3-week period because they're so long. So, but like I said, we'll see. A couple pieces of casting news here before we get into our review. Nothing too crazy. last week we had Donnie Yen joining John Wick 4. Now we have a new addition. We've got Bill Skarsgård, aka Pennywise himself. Any thoughts on what kind of role he could be playing here? It says cast in an unknown role, so we really don't have much to go off of beyond the name.
I'm gonna say he's in a role where he
fights John
He's
Wick.
in the movie for 10 minutes and gets fucking murdered by John Wick. That's what I'm gonna say.
Interesting. So does that mean you think he's a bad guy?
In relative terms, yes. Maybe not the bad guy, but a bad guy.
Right.
Like I could see him being like a what the hell's her name? A Ruby Rose type.
Okay.
From John Wick, like chapter 2. I think that could be kind of his feature in this. Maybe it's gonna be a bigger role, maybe it's gonna be a good guy role, but that's what my first instinct.
We already know that Donnie Yen is gonna be an ally, so
exactly.
John Wick doesn't have many of those. So I think leaning on the antagonist side of things is probably a safe bet.
Yeah.
I'm with you there. Another new addition, Toby Jones joining Indiana Jones 5. First off, reaction to that, and then additionally we have a I don't know if it's a leak or a paparazzi photo or what, but a set photo of the two of them, Harrison Ford and Toby Jones, filming, and it looks like Harrison Ford has some mocap dots on his face. Do we think there's going to be de-aging? Is it just a face melting from throwing it back to Raiders of the Lost Ark? What do we think of both of these little nuggets here? Could be a flashback, a de-aging flashback.
As much as I saw some people talking about this. I was at work when it kind of came out, so I caught up after the fact. I don't really give a shit. I like, as much as we could speculate on it, who cares? Like, he's old. I guess he might look a little less old. He's still gonna walk around like he's old. The Irishman.
They're gonna Irishman him, yeah.
I'm a huge fan of that movie and didn't have any issues with the de-aging in that, and I thought it worked pretty well. If this is like that, I think that works for me. It's unclear again if this is going to be a ton of the movie or just a small section of it or what. I don't really see what the point would be. We all know Harrison Ford is fucking old. Like, why de-age him if it's a movie? I think it is going to be just a portion.
All I'll say is that I'm with you. I hope we're not like de-aging him to try and make him look from 78 to like 50 or whatever, however old he's supposed to be. But like, I think it'd be very cool if they did do like Star Wars style de-aging or whatever for maybe like one sequence, like how they did with Luke and Mandalorian. But
I think
I don't want anything extended here.
I think it's tough to say. I mean, who knows, man? Who knows? I mean, they could do just some small things to like polish up his face, and like, I just don't. But at that point, they're like, why? Like, we all know Harrison Ford is old. We all know.
At this point, it's kind of like part of the marketing that it's like, I got to go check out this 78-year-old guy on screen. It's not like, it's not a secret.
Yeah, exactly. And it is also interesting in the fact that, Raiders came out in 1982. That movie set in like the 30s. This is going to be set in the 60s. Supposedly, it's a rumor. So you got about 30 years of difference. So this is only like if it was set to the actual time, filming versus the world of the film, it's going to be about 10 years probably over, a little bit older. So are you going to de-age him 10 years for the entire movie? I don't think that makes sense or is a good idea. So just don't even bother. Let him look a little bit older. He's had honey, it's not the years, it's the mileage. So let's forget all that. But if it is for a little, a short sequence or flashback or something, I'm down for that. I think that we can make that work. Anything else, I think, is superfluous. But I'm still looking forward to this in some regard.
I'm with you on that. But one more piece, we've got to circle back to Marvel, to the MCU, because everything goes back to the MCU nowadays. And we've got a new villain for a new show. Jamila Jamil cast as the villain Titania in the She-Hulk show coming to Disney Plus. I don't know if you're familiar. I did not know. I know Jamila Jamil from The Good Place. She plays Tahani on that, and she's incredible. One of my favorite shows. But I did not know the character Titania. Did a little research. She was a young, scrawny girl that was picked on in high school, didn't have any friends, and always wanted to be a superhero, get some powers so that she could be popular, but also exact revenge. Is it exact or extract? Anyways, get revenge on the people who made fun of her. And her friend were recruited by Dr. Doom. He found them at their weakest, and he turned them into supervillains. And Titania, she gained super strength, super durability, intelligence. Basically, as her name suggests, turned into a Titan. So that sounds like a formidable opponent for a Hulk-like character for She-Hulk to go up against. Any thoughts there?
No.
No thoughts. Have
Empty.
you seen The Good Place?
No.
Okay. Well, I would recommend it. I would definitely recommend it.
At some point.
No, you won't.
You're probably right.
She is a very non-villainous character in that, so it'll be interesting to see how she transitions over to being a bad guy. But that is it for news. Let's turn it over. Johnny, you have the floor. In the Heights. I mentioned it. I don't think we were recording yet, but I was going to try and see this in theaters, and then work schedules got shifted around, and then I was going to watch it on HBO Max, and then HBO Max buffered for a solid 45 minutes, so I have not seen this. Johnny is taking over. Let's do it.
Once upon a time, in a faraway land called Washington Heights. Say it so it doesn't disappear.
Washington Heights!
Lights up on Washington Heights, up at the break of day. I wake up and I got this little punk I gotta chase away. Pop the grate at the crack of dawn, sing while I wipe down the awning.
Hey, good morning.
Ice cold piragua, cherry, strawberry, and just for today, I got my mate.
Story of a block that was disappearing.
The genius is back!
Yo, here's your chance, ask her out right now. Hey!
There's something on your shirt.
Smooth operator, all damn.
We all had a sueñito. And when it came to dreams, we had to keep scraping by.
Maybe this neighborhood's changing forever. Maybe tonight is our last night together, however.
I just want to see the whole world through her eyes.
They're talking about kicking out all the dreamers. It's time to make some noise.
In the Heights. By now, this movie was supposed to come out a year ago. All right, so we have the feeling, all the knowledge that's been out there. I mean, the marketing's been going crazy. They've been going full tilt with it, which is always a pleasant surprise. And it is a Lin-Manuel Miranda musical, as we stated earlier on in the show. This was kind of like his first big break into the world of like musical theater and Broadway. Won Tony Awards for it, and really gave him the foundation to go ahead and make Hamilton later on. I don't have experience with Hamilton. I have not seen it, have not heard it. I know people are like obsessed with it. But I do have some like trepidations with musicals, musical theater, musical films. But I always keep an open mind. I love La La Land. It's one of my favorites. I'm a fan of some others, but this, I think contemporary stuff as well is a little bit like harder for me to get into maybe. So at this, I was a little bit skeptical like hearing of it because I have been following the production, but the trailers I thought looked great. I think they really like sold the film really well, and like in a way that was like spot on to what you can expect in the movie. And of course it stars Anthony Ramos, who is from Hamilton, Melissa Barrera, Leslie Grace, Corey Hawkins, Olga Moredes, and Jimmy Smits. Jimmy Smits from Star Wars. But it is we have basically it gives a lot of vibes of, and I'm sure there's some sort of inspiration there, but Do the Right Thing was a big connection that I read, just from the fact that it is set kind of not in one day like Do the Right Thing is, but over the course of a few days in this hot neighborhood in New York, in Washington Heights, which is in Upper Manhattan, and is just following this, the community there and the everyday struggles and the issues of gentrification and immigration and a number of other issues, and really handles it pretty well while balancing it with fun, lively musical numbers, a lot of comedy, humor, but still like keeping an emotional weight to it. Before I really get into my feelings on it, Rotten Tomatoes, and really critics everywhere, I mean, Metacritic, online, everything that I've read and seen so far, universal praise. One of the best reviewed films of the year, if not the best. 96% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, 96% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, which is always exciting to see. I'd rate it, I'd probably give this like an 85, 87 out of 100. Super high on it. Even higher than I expect it to be, which is saying something because I expected it to be great. And the plot, just to give you a full breakdown, the scent of a cafecito caliente hangs in the air just outside of the 181st Street subway stop, where a kaleidoscope of dreams rallies this vibrant and tight-knit community. At the intersection of it all is the likable, magnetic bodega owner, Usnavi, who saves every penny from his daily grind as he hopes, imagines, and sings about a better life. In the Heights fuses Lin-Manuel Miranda's kinetic music and lyrics with the director John M. Chu's lively and authentic eye for storytelling to capture a world very much of its place, but universal in its experience. Now, of course, Usnavi is played by Anthony Ramos, and John M. Chu is the director of Crazy Rich Asians, which I have yet to see, unfortunately. I think it's still on my HBO Max watch list, but do want to get around to that at some point. And he also has coming out of this lined up and finally the film adaptation of Wicked, which has been in development hell for like over a decade. But if this is any indication, I think that that movie's in good hands, because this, again, it knocked me out. I expected it to be great, and it has, like I said, universal praise critically from audiences. Anyone that's seen it has been raving about it online for the last few weeks, it seems like now. But I was going into it, I was trying to keep my expectations in check. I didn't want to be like, oh, this better be the best movie of the year. This better be one of the best musicals I've ever seen. Again, I liked the trailers when they released the 8-minute opening number online. I think it was earlier this week or even last week. I was like, wow, okay, that I did watch it. I couldn't resist. I don't know if you watched it, Zach. I don't know if you had any thoughts on that or kind of what your expectation was, but
I did not watch that, but like I said, I made it through maybe the first number with a few buffering stops. So I've got a hint of what it's going to be like.
Yeah. So that knocked me out. I was like, okay, this is going to be legit. And I was excited to see more, and coming into the theater was like, okay, I know it's gonna be great. How great can it be? And the answer is pretty damn great. It exceeded my expectations, and I really think part of that was, again, as someone who doesn't watch a ton of musicals, has no issue with them. I like them when they're done well. Like, and I think that they can make for great cinema. Of course, there are plenty of iconic movie musicals. Sound of Music, Dancing in the Rain, West Side Story, you name it. La La Land being a more recent one. It can be done well, but this, the writing, the characters, the world, and I was just on a vacation to New York. I love New York. I've been there, multiple times, and this is now like one of my favorite New York movies. Like it brings the city to life in such a like beautiful, genuine way. It is very much just like Do the Right Thing, or just like the other, best movies set in New York. It is its own character. Um, and it's, they filmed it in New York. They filmed it in the streets of Washington Heights, which is beautiful to see, the bridge and this, the different art pieces and the murals and the tunnel and just all like these spots, which if they weren't iconic before, they certainly are now. And are going to be seen by so many more people because of this movie. Of course, it's riding off Lin-Manuel's success and popularity. I think that's a reason why his name is in the trailer. I think that's why you know he's in the movie. He has a very small kind of role, but he does pop up throughout to kind of like wink and smile and wave at the camera and be like, "Hey, I wrote this. Don't forget." And it's kind of like it's tongue in cheek, but it's kind of like a funny, annoying. But thankfully, the star, of course, is Anthony Ramos. And the dude, like when I say star, like I mean star. Like this guy has the damn goods. And I haven't seen Hamilton, haven't listened to a lot of it, but he can sing, he can dance, he can act his ass off, he can do comedy, he can do drama. He brings the emotional heft to it. He feels genuine. He feels down to earth, but he can rise above it into this elevated reality of the musical, and be a little bit larger than life. He just like it is a movie that is, with as much music as is in the movie. The movie is also close to 2.5 hours. I think it's 140 something minutes. If he was not up to the task, it would be a much lesser film, and he is very much up to the task. And of course, he is supported by a fantastic cast. And I think, really, I mean, they're all strong, and there's like, not a weak link in it. And of course, I went into the movie not knowing much about this musical. I hadn't seen it, hadn't heard the music for it. I knew a good amount of the supporting cast. I was aware of Anthony Ramos. I also knew that Olga Mireles was, Tony nominated for her role in this in the Broadway musical, and she was reprising her role in this. I knew Corey Hawkins was in it. Didn't really realize Jimmy Smits was a part of it until I saw the opening sequence online recently. And then of course you have Leslie Grace as Nina Rosario and Melissa Barrera as Vanessa. And I thought it was the story, again, not familiar with musical on stage, but this I thought did a really good job of keeping all of those, different character arcs balanced in the air, making them all satisfying, making them all get the right amount of attention needed. While Usnavi is the lead and the main character, it doesn't feel like it's a one-man show. While he does everything that's asked of him, he still gets awesome support from Corey Hawkins, who is, I haven't seen him in a lot. I know he's been in some shows and some other movies, but this is like the most I've seen of him. And he is, again, he's dancing and singing his ass off just as much as Anthony Ramos. He's killing it. He's funny. He's bringing the goods. Leslie Grace and Melissa Barrera are also very, very good. I'm not sure, they seem very young. I'm not sure how young they are in reality, but I have not seen them in anything else, and I hope to see more of them. There is a significant screen time paid to both of their stories, which are very much independent of any male characters. Really, they are very much their own people, and they have their own dreams, just like everyone else. And Leslie Grace as Nina, she plays the daughter of Jimmy Smits's Kevin Rosario, and Melissa Barrera as Vanessa, who is a potential love interest for Usnavi. And I think that they have a really fun relationship and dynamic that kind of roller coasters its way through the film. Not unlike, for an example of a movie that I'm just a really big fan of, La La Land, where you have Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone, Seb and Mia. They're kind of like up and down all around, and I think that's just kind of like a really good basis for musical relationships and romances in general. It kind of has its ebbs and flows with the music, the ups and downs, and that works to really good effect here. And I've been talking about the setting of the film, the heat wave in this New York neighborhood, the barrio. People have been talking about this as the movie of the summer. I hope it is. I think it could be that big. It could have the legs to go, for the next couple months. But it certainly feels like a summer movie. It feels built for this moment.
Well, that's one of the questions I was going to ask you. You dubbed it the movie of the summer. What you've obviously just spent quite some time breaking it all down, but what is it that makes it such that summer is like the perfect time to release this, that this could be something that dominates the June, July, August, that just becomes, movie of the summer is not a title that's given out lightly.
Right. So, I mean, it's a couple of things, really. I mean, it's a fantastic picture for one thing, which definitely goes a long way. But it has pop, appeal. It has some known people. It has actors that people are aware of and like. It has music that is incredibly catchy, that will get stuck in people's heads. We'll have them going back and listening to the soundtrack. We'll have them going back and watching certain scenes from the movie, and which I think is super important for musical appeal and the longevity of success. But then also it has the visuals. I think the choreography is amazing, and the visuals and kind of the dynamic way that they play with the cinematic medium. They do things in this that you can't do on stage, and I think that's one thing I always look for whether it's a stage play or a musical that is being taken to the big screen. Do something that can't be done on the stage. And at this point of with technology that they have now, so many things can be done in the theater, but there are still many things that cannot be done, and can only be done in a movie. And I think that they do enough of that here, and I think using the form to tell the story, using it to its biggest potential, that's something you need to do. And I thought John M. Chu did a fantastic job helming this and taking it, making it in a way making it his own, and having his own vision and having everyone behind him. And talking about the visuals, talking about the sound of this, I went and saw it in the theater. Zach, you tried to watch it on HBO Max.
Everything that we've seen, from like the little snippets on the trailers where it's got like a little quote from a review, everything's saying, see it on the biggest screen possible. That this is like a theatrical experience. You were talking about the theater versus movie. What about the movie theater versus watching it at home? I know it's sort of underperforming at the box office. A lot of people seem to be taking advantage of the HBO Max option. After having seen it in the theater, is it something that needs to be seen in the theater? I know we're both biased to the theatrical experience in general, but what is it okay to watch it on HBO Max? Do you still get the same effect?
I really do think, I saw A Quiet Place Part 2 in IMAX a couple weeks ago. I really think this movie benefits so much from seeing it in a theater because, firstly, as I mentioned, the visuals are fantastic. The sound is great. The sound editing, the mix, seeing it with the surround sound, the big speakers, and seeing it on a huge screen, is the way to go always. But for this in particular, I think it really works. It doesn't have the spectacle of something like a big superhero comic book movie or Star Wars or something like that. but it's a huge, musical. It's a musical that uses the space and uses the dynamics that they have. And on top of that, I always have fun, if you go to a actual musical, in a theater, on Broadway or, on tour, what have you, the energy you have with the audience is a big part of that. And you have the energy, it's between the audience and it's between the performers on stage, of course. Now, this is a movie, so they're not on stage. It's been filmed, 2 years ago. It's all past. But I think the energy I felt, at least last night, in a theater that was not by any means full, but there was a good amount of people in there. I was with my girlfriend, and I could hear people, kind of lightly singing the tunes, and I was certainly like in that zone and like had that energy going. And my girlfriend was like bumping, and it was just a lot of fun. And I think having that communal experience, and for a movie that is so centered on community and the power of family, even in not related to blood, but your experiences together, I think that's a powerful thing. And I think it is certainly worth the ticket price and going out and seeking it out. And there was also a nice little cute message before the movie from Lin-Manuel and John M. Chu and producers talking about, thank you for, taking the time to come out and see it. And, during, it's been a long pandemic and this was supposed to come out a year ago, but, appreciate all that. So it was nice. And, I could see myself revisiting this on HBO Max, certainly. But I think getting that, I could have watched it before last night when I saw it in theaters on HBO Max, but I chose not to. I chose for my first watch of it to be in that theater, and I think that was the way to go, and it worth the wait.
Well, I'm hoping now, since we're obviously reviewing this without me having seen it, I'm hoping that I can get to a theater and check it out there so that I can get that experience, but also don't have to worry about buffering. But you mentioned Hamilton before, that you haven't seen it, that talking about Anthony Ramos and his talent, knowing what he can do in Hamilton. Now that you've kind of gotten in on the Lin-Manuel Miranda hype, loving this, is that something that you would go back and revisit now?
Yeah,
right? I guess visit for the first time.
I would have an open mind, more so. I mean, I didn't have a closed mind necessarily before. I just wasn't seeking it out or like really excited to dig into that. Now that I have seen this Lin-Manuel, written musical, and I have seen Anthony Ramos, and I know he's in Hamilton. I also know, people like Daveed Diggs, and he's in Hamilton as well. Leslie Odom Jr. is in Hamilton. I'm familiar with him from, One Night in Miami. Now that I've seen that, I would definitely be more keen on watching it now, or at least listening to it and getting into that hype, well after the fact. I think now that it's died down, I could get into it and not be so, hesitant. But yeah, I'm more open to it now, I guess.
I would strongly recommend that. I mean, I'm not like I very much enjoyed it, but I'm not like an obsessive Hamilton fan, but it's certainly worth the watch. And it's as much as it sounds like you enjoyed this movie, I would imagine that they go hand in hand with each other, just knowing from what I could tell in the opening act, it's the same style, that classic Lin-Manuel Miranda of the like talk rapping, and just like that. Hamilton is like continuous singing versus no dialogue. I don't know if In the Heights is the same way.
This is a little bit more like an operetta. Like, there is, based on what I've seen and heard, there's more dialogue in this than Hamilton, but there's a lot of singing, and a lot of the dialogue could be sung, and frequently is, but there is talking as well, so not a true opera. Well,
my last question for you before we wrap up, I know it's still in the editing process right now. It's not up and on the website for the world to see yet, your Oscars preview, but you mentioned it earlier when we were talking about Tick, Tick, Boom. very crowded musical field this year. Going into having viewed this, I believe West Side Story was of all of the musicals, it was kind of your highest expectation for Oscar chances at a Best Picture, at any sort of acting, or just in general, Oscar's glory. Is that being reevaluated now after having seen this? Do you think that this has better shots, or is it kind of status quo, is maintained the same?
It's really tough to say. And before, to fully clarify, like, I had no doubt this movie would be great, and I had no doubt that it would be deserving potentially of a Best Picture nomination, whatever that means. If the Golden Globes were still around and happening this year, it would certainly be nominated, and I could certainly see Anthony Ramos taking home, Best Actor in a musical, or this potentially winning Best Musical. Maybe it gets into SAG for like Best Ensemble, because it's a fantastic cast all the way around. The Guilds, it's got beautiful production design, and the cinematography is very impressive and things like that. I just still, it's tough, because it does seem like it's going to underwhelm a little bit at the box office, at least right out of the gate. Again, it could have strong legs. I hope it does. But it's coming out in June, basically the beginning of June. The Oscars are in January, or the nominations come out in January. It's so far away. It's impossible for me to say, like, I say it's impossible for me to say hard one way or another, despite writing that entire thing. But like, it's hard to imagine, I guess, that this maintains, especially if it underwhelms a little bit, and it doesn't do crazy box office numbers, that it manages to get into that top 10 now with the expanded field for the Best Picture. I could see it maybe sneaking into some other categories, like, Olga Moredes has like very strong moments in this movie, and there's been some supporting actress talk for her. I could see that happening. It's not out of the realm of possibility. It's just hard with all the other competition. I mean, you got guys like Spielberg, Guillermo del Toro, Wes Anderson, Denis Villeneuve, just Ridley Scott with 2 movies. It's just hard. And then some other, Oscar favorites as well. Like, can it break through in such a way? And with all these other movies that are going to have, such strong cinematography, designs, acting, screenplays much later in the year, and at big festivals that people are going to be looking to and expecting like Oscar potential from, it's really hard. I mean, maybe I'll be taking another look at my piece, I guess, to really like finalize it and think about it some more. But it's I don't know. I don't know if they're gonna fully embrace it or not. This could be a Best Picture nominee, or it could not get nominated for anything. We'll see. But I think right now, if I had to say, I would stick to my guns and say that it will get kind of shafted in a way, at least at the big show, at the Oscars. Maybe it sneaks into some other stuff. But I think it's just too crowded. I think the pandemic really has, like, you can't understate the effect and the ripple effect of the pandemic.
The musicals were supposed to be spaced over 2 years versus all in 2021.
Exactly. So that is certainly a huge factor. And not only that, the musical aspect, but the prestige picture, the big directors, they've all been kind of shuffled into not only just this year, but the last half of the year, the last quarter of the year. So many big names and prestigious projects with tons of high profile cast and crew, who have tons of award pedigree and history, and are going to be looked at much closer to the big show in nominations and stuff. So on that respect, I'm bearish on it. I'm not super optimistic or hopeful, but it doesn't need that. It doesn't need that. I just hope that it's a success. I hope that this movie, makes more than its money back. I hope that people, go out and support it, and listen to the music, and like take the story like to heart, and because it deserves that, and it's a beautiful movie, and better than I even expected it to be, and I expected it to be great. So I think that's kind of like the highest highest praise I can offer, especially coming from me. So,
well, you have had a ton of praise for this movie, and it's gotten me even more excited to either get to a theater or get my Wi-Fi figured out, because I want to check this out. I'm very excited to see it. But any closing thoughts before we wrap it up?
if I had any negatives to say, the one big one that comes to mind is I think the pacing was a little bit off, especially on the back end. I mentioned this last night in the group chat, but I think because there are so many great like show-stopping musical numbers. There's one in particular that really felt like it was bringing the whole thing home, and like it could have been the finale. And then like it goes on for like another 20 minutes or so, and it's still, the reason I forgive it so much, just I think especially, is that where it ends up going and the way that it concludes the story and brings it all together was so kind of surprising and satisfactory that I kind of forgot or like didn't care so much that it felt a little bit long. And I know musicals, Broadway, productions, things like that are often, if you see them in person, I mean, they can go 3-4 hours. So the fact that it did get cut down to 220 or whatever it is impressive. But yeah, I think they could have shaved a little bit off. But again, it's a minor gripe. I thought all the performances were awesome. The choreography, the music, the dancing, the acting. It's a great flick, and gets my stamp of approval, despite any qualms that I can conjure up.
Well, the Johnny stamp is hard to come by, so congrats to In the Heights. And if it has the Johnny stamp, I'm sure it would have the Zach stamp. So. Oh
God, and Zach, before we move on, I have some bad news on the box office front. The numbers that came in, so on the weekend it was projected to make 20 million domestically, which again would have been a little bit underwhelming in the respect that they have been marketing it so hard. You would hope that it would make a little bit more than that, especially with no other major releases. Then yesterday I think they said it was going to be closer to like 13 million, which would be really underperforming, and disappointing. And now it says that the weekend number is supposedly 11 million. So, oof. Yeah, if there's any Oscar potential, it might be swirling down the toilet right now, but we'll see what happens later in the year. Please go see this movie, people. If you're listening to this after the fact, who cares how much it made opening weekend? You can still go out and see it, or you can still stream it, but go see it in theaters if you can afford to and are feeling comfortable to do so.
Well, there you have it. Thank you all for listening to our Johnny's review of In the Heights. If you have not checked it out yet, please check out this movie, like Johnny said, and also check out our Week of Lasso specials on YouTube. 7 interviews across the last 7 days. It's been a ton of fun. We put a lot of hard work into that. And if you love Ted Lasso, then it is perfect for you. But other than that, thank you for listening, and thank you for tuning in to everything we create.
Absolutely. Go check that out. I know Zach, that was his baby, his pride and joy, getting that all, organized and produced and sent out. So congrats, Zach, for getting that all done, and we'll see what the future holds. But follow us on Twitter. We have memes and things. We got polls, we got giveaways, we got all that stuff. Instagram as well. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe on YouTube, where you can find all those Ted Lasso, Week of Lasso videos, interviews, as well as the podcast episodes. You can find those accounts at Inside Film Room.
And while you're at it, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. We're on Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, Google, Amazon, iHeartRadio, anywhere you can find a podcast. We are there. And be sure to come back next week as we break down Luca, the latest from Disney and Pixar, hitting Disney Plus next Friday. And, of course, Loki episode 2. We will talk to you then.